So rise over run, change in y over change in x. When we're finding slope between 2 points, all we're doing is finding slope from a line. So we're doing the same thing over and over in this unit because we're always doing it from a line. But it's like you have 2 points graphed and you're finding the slope between them, but you don't actually have the graph. So we have to use this special formula right here. And it says m. We've seen m before. Y equals mx plus b. Do you remember this? This is the same m. Okay, so it's the rate of change of a line. Another way you could find it, besides looking at the graph and making the triangle, is by using this formula. Subtract the y's, subtract the x's. This is the same thing as change in y over the change in x. Recall, a point is x, y. Right? So the first number is the y value, the second number, oh, what am I saying? The first number is the x value, second number is the y value. That's what we're using. So you notice that it says y2 and y1. All that means is take the y value from the second point and subtract the y value from the first point. Now put a fraction bar. And on the bottom of the fraction, do the x value from the second point subtracted by the x value from the first point, because you're finding how it changes. So the first thing you should do on these type of problems is number the points. Because that's going to help you keep it straight and make sure you choose in the correct order. I do not care which point you number 1 and number 2, and it doesn't matter. I'm usually just going to do the first point I see is number 1, the second point I see is number 2. So for this first one, I'm going to make 3, 6. I'm going to put 1. Make 4, 9, 0.2. Please label that. So when you do this, please, every single time, write out the formula so that right before you plug in the points, you know what order to put them in. It's going to be the slope, rate of change, m, y equals mx plus b, is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Change in y over change in x. We are saying the exact same thing. So now we just put in the numbers. Guys, what is the y value from the second point? The y value from the second point, 9. And if it helps you, you can put these little like x, y right below it to keep it straight. So the y value from the second point, y2, is 9. So the first number I should put is 9. Then we're going to subtract. Even if you're subtracting a negative, you've got to put this minus sign. Subtract the y value from the first point. What is the y value from the first point? 6. So 9 minus 6. Now we move on to our x's on the bottom. Change in x is going to be x2. So the x value from the second point, what is it? 4. Subtract. Then put that next number. X value from the first point? 3. Now we're going to go ahead and just subtract these. What's 9 minus 6? What's 4 minus 3? Now, you can divide this evenly. 3 divided by 1 is 3. So your final answer should be 3. That is the slope. If you graphed these 2 points and made a line out of them, you get the exact same thing on the grid. You get the exact same thing from the table. What we're going to do is write the formula so we plug it in correctly. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I've done this for years, so I have it memorized. You will too eventually. All you got to remember is change in y over change in x. And then we want to number our points, so I'm just going to do it in the order I see it. 0.1, 0.2. We're finding how much it adds and subtracts between those 2 points. That's all we're doing. And if it helps you, label it XY, XY right below. That way you keep it straight. Okay, now we're going to plug into our fraction. Guys, what's the y value from the second point?
11.
It is negative 11, so you got to write negative 11. Okay, now we need minus, so put that. What is the y value from the first point?
3.
It is not 3. It is negative 3. So this should say negative 11 minus negative 3. If you've got a negative, do you see how I still have this subtraction sign has got to be there. So we are subtracting a negative. Okay, the bottom, we're going to do x2. So x value from the second point is 5, positive 5. And the x value, so it subtract x value from the first point, 1. This is where you got to use your integer skills. It's been a little bit. If you subtract a negative, yet that's the same thing as adding. So what I'm going to do, you're going to see me do is go, if I'm subtracting a negative, that's the same thing as adding. So I'm just going to make those plus signs if I got two negatives right next to each other. Okay, so negative 11 plus 3. Use your number line if you need to. You're at negative 11, you go right 3. Negative 11, right 3, because we're adding. What would it be, Alice? Negative 8. It would be negative 14 if you subtracted 3, but we're not. We're adding. So it's got to be negative 8. And then this one's easy. 5 minus 1? 4. Okay, we got negative 8 divided by positive 4. What's it going to be? Negative 2. If it helps you, I've got this little thing. Sometimes I draw this out for students, if I remember. To help you out when you are multiplying or dividing. Positive divided by, negative divided by a positive is a negative. Negative times a negative is a positive. So if this helps you, great. If it doesn't, then don't worry about it. So you just cover up the numbers that you have. So if you have two numbers being multiplied that are negative, then you'll get a positive. Let's start by writing down our formula. Same thing. Do you have it memorized yet? And number your points. 0.1, 0.2. I don't care which one you make, 0.1, 0.2, but if you go in that order, that's fine. Oh, these ones are all nice and positive. And you can put those x and y's to help you out. What's the y value from the second point?
7.
7. Guys, subtract. Put that first. Y value from the first point?
3.
3. So you gotta start with the second point again. It says x2, so that's what you have to do. Do not start with the other one. What's the x value from the second point? 1. 1 minus x value from the first? 1. Let's see what happens. 7 minus 3? 4. 1 minus 1?
0.
0 is on the bottom. What do we say?
Undefined.
Undefined. Because it's like having 4 cookies split evenly among 0 friends. That's not, well, your friends don't get any cookies because you don't have any. And then Cookie Monster takes them all. Doesn't make sense? It's undefined. You have to say that. You'll get partial credit, of course, if you leave it as 4 over 0, but that's not the final answer. And then one more. We won't do all of them on the back. I haven't decided yet which ones I want to do. We'll wing it. So one more here. Write down the formula. And number your points. And label your x's and y's. We're finding how it changes in y on the top. Olivia, what's my y value from the second point?
4.
Bella, what's my y value from the first point? No, y value from the first point. Yeah. And then, Sebastian, what's the x value from the second point? X value from the second point, x2. 0?
No.
I don't see one. X value from the second point. Look at this second point, 2, 4. What's the x value?
Oh my.
Yeah, it's 2. 2, okay, you got to be careful here. Minus -2. Okay, now you've got on the bottom, subtracting a negative is the same thing as adding. So you've got 4 minus 4 on the top, you get 0. And on the bottom, you got? No, 4. 2 minus -2, you're taking away the negative, which is the same thing as adding. So it's 0 over 4, which is 0. On problems like this, do it the exact same way. So don't freak out just because they're on a line. You're going to number your points like 1, 2, and then use your formula. So if it's not on a grid, but you still see it on a line with the points like that, you can't really use the triangles. You're going to have to use the formula, okay? Okay, Jason works on a 50-day selling period on day 10. On day 10, Jason had sold a total of 35 units. That's one pair of numbers. Day 10, 35 units. X, Y, because the amount of days causes the number of units. The X is what's causing things, independent variable. On day 33, Jason sold a total of 104 units. X, Y. And so we're totaling up every day. So it's not that he's selling 104 things in one day. It's that in those 23 days in between, he gained quite a few. So what we have here is two sets of points. We have 10, 35, and 33, 104. Just like before, number your points. Write the formula. Because it wants us to find the slope. We're going to find how many, what we're doing is we're finding how many he's selling per day or per several days. Jack, what's my y value from the second point? Remember, you can write these x, y, x, y. And then we're going to subtract the y value from the first point. Alice, what is that? 35. Okay, on to our x values. The x2 is the x value from the second point, which is what, Elise? And Riley, we're going to subtract x1, which is what? Okay. We're going to go ahead and subtract these. If you can't do the subtraction in your head, then you know that you can write it out. 104 minus 35. I'm going to borrow, so I'm going to make this 14 and borrow from the 10. Did I do that right? Okay. And then sometimes I worry about my subtraction skills. So we get 9 and 6. Does that look right? Okay. So it's 9 on the bottom. We've got 33 minus 10 is 23. Okay, but this divides evenly. 69 divided by 23 will give you 3. Because 20 times 3 is 60, and 3 times 3 is 9. So it's going to be 3. And we're talking about what this means, because it's a word problem. 3 units per day. Because if you divide and get one number, that's what it represents.